What's new, crew? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Cassandra. You're probably going to hear some kids around in the background. It's still Christmas break here, so things are still just a little bit louder than usual because we've got more kids around. Today we're talking about freezer pantry challenge. I am going to be participating in the Three Rivers challenge. I have been hesitant to do a challenge like this since 2020. I kind of just wanted to keep what we had up on the shelf and not blow through everything in a 2-month period, and we're basically going to be eating out of our freezers and our pantries for the next 2 months during January and February, trying to keep our grocery bill as small as possible. I have decided to participate in this when talking to my husband. We want to know realistically what we would actually need to be mostly self-sufficient in the case of an emergency or a job loss or something like that. How much food do we actually have to have up on the shelf to sustain our family? Because since the last time we've done this, our family has grown. Some of our kids are much older now and eating more. We don't have all babies and all toddlers anymore, so it's time to kind of revisit this and get some updated information. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next 2 months, is figuring out exactly how much food we would really need to store, grow, preserve, all of those things to be able to have up on the shelf to hold our family over in case of an emergency, whether that be something like COVID or a job loss, which I think a lot of us experienced in 2020 was either a mixture of one or both. So I very loosely sat down and made a January meal plan. I have a full 31-day spread meal plan on here. Already looking at it, I know I'm gonna have to tweak some things, but these were just kind of like some brain dumping ideas on what I could do on just what I know I have in my freezers, in my pantries, up on the shelves, and maybe I only needed 1 or 2 ingredients and would be able to purchase those things from the store and make a big meal out of it that way. So this was just like a brain dump session, but I have things like raviolis, sliders, beef and noodles, creamy sausage pasta. I have some Pinterest recipes that I've been wanting to make over the last couple of weeks or a couple of months, and I've never made them. They just keep getting skipped over, and I'm deciding that this is the time we're going to do it because I usually have bought all of those ingredients and they're just sitting waiting to be used. So that's kind of what this is. A lot of leftover meals that never got used, or just things that I know we can make on our own. Like we make our noodles from scratch now, and for Christmas I just got this really nice pasta roller so I can make my own raviolis now and my own lasagna noodles now. So I'm very excited about that. So we're going to be giving those a try. I'm super excited about it. So just some brain dumped meals. That way I can have this either up on my fridge or over on my bulletin board, and when I'm kind of looking around and going, okay, I'm doing this challenge and nothing around me seems to be inspiring me, or I'm looking at things and I just can't think of anything, I have this here. Or early in the morning I can look at this list, kind of go down and say, okay, I know I have everything for this, or most of the things for this meal. Let me go pull out that meat out of the freezer right away so that later tonight it's easier to make dinner. So that's kind of what this is. This isn't like a set in stone meal plan. It's just kind of a rough guide for me over the next, at least the next month, if not the next 2 months. I'm really excited to be doing this. Some of the things that I'm going to be purchasing from the store, let's talk about that really quick. The thing I love about this challenge is that you can be as strict or as loose with it as you possibly can. If you're not new, you know that usually in the month of January, my family participates in this thing called No Spend January, which is basically we're not buying anything that isn't necessity. We're paying our bills, we're buying the necessities, our food, our household items. That's it. It's kind of just like a financial reset after the end of the year. The end of the year is always crazy for us. It starts in September. That's when birthdays hit in our house. All 4 of our kids have birthdays between just the very last week of September and the very first week of January. So all of our kids' birthdays are in like that 8-week spread. Plus we have Christmas in there, and you have Halloween and back to school. So it's kind of like everything snowballs at the end of the year for us, which is true for a lot of people. So it's just kind of like a mental and financial reset to be able to say, okay, we're putting a halt on the money spending. We're gonna save absolutely everything that we can, and sometimes we'll use it on making a big bulk payment on a vehicle, or like when we had a lawnmower loan, we paid the lawnmower off. So things like that. It's just kind of over the next couple of weeks, we're halting on the money spending. We're gonna save it. Sometimes we spend it on like a weekend getaway in the summer, or we plan it for a fun activity. So some years we've been able to save a good chunk of change, and some years it hasn't been a whole lot, just depending on financial situations. So that's kind of how it goes for us typically in January anyways. But this time we are adding on the 3 Rivers Challenge, which I'm really excited about. I think it's going to force us to try to eat through maybe some cuts of meat that I'm not as particularly knowledgeable on how to cook or how to prepare. And I'm going to try to force myself over the next 2 months to use those cuts of meat to become more knowledgeable, to make more headway in the kitchen, try new recipes and things. As you can see behind me here, I'm starting my own sourdough. I'm filming this whole process on my very first sourdough loaf, from the very first day to the end of the bread. So this video will be coming up soon. The next couple of weeks are really just going to be practicing new skills, trying to get comfortable in those new skills before spring hits, because once spring hits, that's when everything shifts into the garden. We're putting the orchard in this year, and we're also putting in all of the berry plants that we already ordered. So it's gonna be a really busy spring. So once that happens, everything kind of stops, and you don't have time to experiment in the kitchen because you're preserving in the kitchen. So that's what these next couple of weeks for me personally is going to be about. Things that I am still going to allow myself to purchase from the store over the next 2 months are all of my dairy items, because we don't produce dairy here on the homestead. It's something that I don't think we ever will, to be honest. We kind of contemplated doing some sort of dairy setup, but it's just not in the cards for us right now. I don't think it's something that 100% we're interested in. I've talked about this in the past. I'm never gonna bring something onto the homestead that I'm not 100% committed in, especially a live animal, because I'm not going to just get rid of it once I have it. And once you get it, the time commitment is already there and you have to push through. So I'm not quite there yet. I don't know if we ever will be, but that might change in the future. So I will be buying dairy, things like yogurts, butter, heavy cream, obviously milk, cheese, things like that. And then I'm also going to be allowing us fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, or frozen vegetables of some sort. I was kind of looking through my freezers and trying to determine if I had enough frozen fruit or frozen vegetables to get us through, and I just don't. A lot of the garden produce we've already gone through. In our frozen things, all of our frozen broccoli is gone, and I don't preserve corn, and I don't grow corn or preserve kernels. I do corn on the cob, but we only have 1 bag of that left. And I don't do peas, and that's something that my family really relies heavily on. So I'm still gonna buy those. I'm still going to buy broccoli, because we went through all of the garden broccoli this year very quickly. But we have a lot of Brussels sprouts and a lot of cabbage in the freezer from the garden, a lot of peppers and things. So we are going to make it work that way, but there are going to be some exceptions for sure. Fresh fruit and fresh vegetables are something I do not want to hold back on. Right now, we don't have the capacity to store anything long-term fruit or vegetable wise and keeping it fresh. We're working on that. We actually have a project going on in the basement right now where we're putting in some sort of cold room situation where we'll be able to store things fresh for long-term, things like carrots and potatoes, all of our root vegetables, maybe even apples and things like that. So we are working on that. It's just not ready right now. So we are still purchasing some of those things from the store. I do have about probably 15 apples left from the neighbors that gave us apples from their orchard, but that is definitely not going to be enough for my family for 2 months. So we will be buying apples, oranges, fresh fruit and vegetables, things like that, and some household items. I went around my house yesterday and really took a good inventory on what I 100% needed, at least to get through January. I'm completely out of tin foil after all of the holiday baking. I'm completely out of dish soap. I'm completely out of things that I normally need for my kids, pull-ups for the kids that need them, diapers, wipes for the baby, and those are really expensive. Just the diapers, wipes, and pull-ups are going to be right around like $180. So right now I have everything set in my cart in the Walmart app, and my total's sitting at like $220 something. But like I said, a lot of that is just diapers and wipes. Other thing that I'm going to be trying to do is making almost all of my bread from scratch. I want to start doing that. I'm forcing myself to do it. I do have 4 loaves of bread in my Walmart cart right now just as backups, just in case I don't have time to get it. So I want to give myself a little bit of leeway in that, but I'm going to try to make a lot of my own sourdough, a lot of my own sandwich bread that we make here often. We do produce our own eggs here on the homestead. I've got a whole counter full of eggs washed up here. My chickens are still laying fantastically. My chickens are doing really great. The last 2 winters, I haven't had a long gap of time where they've stopped laying for me. So I've got probably 4 or 5 dozen eggs up on the counter over the last 2 days that they've laid for me, which is awesome. So I'm not needing to buy eggs. I'm also gonna be trying to make sure that I'm using my homemade cleaners, making my homemade cleaners. I did place an Amazon order for spray bottles and a couple things that I really needed to be more self-sufficient in that area. But that's kind of where my focus is going to be heading into January. Where my focus is really going to be headed in January and February is making sure that I'm making a lot of my own cleaners. I'm using a lot of my own cleaners. We talked about that in a recent video during Vlogmas. I wanted to make sure that I was doing those things, so I placed an order on Amazon for a couple things that I really needed. I will leave those links down below for you guys on the spray bottles and some of the homemade cleaning supplies that I needed. And of course, there will be a video coming up here in January or February making some bulk homemade cleaners. And I'm gonna do my best to film as many dinners, as many meals as I can during Pantry Challenge, how we're gonna get creative and learn new things, hopefully. So that's kind of the overall plan for January and February. Who knows, we might get through January and it might hit February and I might go, guys, we're done with Pantry Challenge. We did it for January and I'm really happy with where we're at. We learned everything we wanted to learn. So regular grocery hauls are gonna happen in February. That could be a possibility. So I'm not holding myself to a certain standard or a high standard for myself. I'm going in this with some ideas that I want to learn how much food we would realistically need for a month for our family size. I want to learn some new skills. I want to become more self-sufficient and get into the habit of making my own breads, using my own cleaners and things like that. So that's where my family is headed for January and February. So my once a month grocery hauls are going to look a little bit different in January and February, but that is that. I'm also not going to be putting up a meal plan video, even though I have something here, because it's just some Spitfire ideas. It's not set in stone. So that's where we're headed in the next couple of weeks. Make sure you subscribe if you want to come along on that challenge with us, and I will catch you guys during the video. Bye.